Hi, I'm Gregg Corr, the Director of the Division of Monitoring and State Improvement Planning, and I want to spend a few minutes today providing you with an overview of our efforts to move to a differentiated monitoring and support system as part of our results-driven accountability initiative. First, a little history about OSEP monitoring. Many of you are probably familiar with this, but just to set the stage, we know that in the past, the focus of OSEP monitoring was almost exclusively on meeting procedural compliance requirements. One way OSEP accomplished this was by conducting cyclical monitoring visits to every state. These occurred for a particular state once every 4 or 5 or sometimes 6 years. Both Parts B and Part C programs were monitored in any given state, regardless of the presence of issues or concerns. The protocols that were used for every state were identical, regardless of the circumstances presented in the state. The major topic of the visits was IDEA requirements. Results and outcomes were discussed only passingly, but were not a major focus of those visits and of our monitoring initiatives. So over the past years, we've seen an increased emphasis on improving outcomes and results. And although we know that compliance is and continues to be incredibly important, that compliance by itself will not necessarily improve results for students with disabilities. In March 2012, then Secretary Arne Duncan and our OSEP director at the time, Melody Musgrove, announced that OSEP would suspend its compliance-based cyclical monitoring. We thought it was important that we completely stop our monitoring so we could analyze all of our investments and align them to improve results. We were trying to achieve a balance between compliance and results. This is the same balance that we know many of you are trying to achieve at the state level. Answering the question, how do you ensure compliance while directing the majority of your efforts to assisting local programs with improving results? We know that what we focus on is what improves. So we're now moving to a new system of differentiated monitoring and support. And in my session and some of the following sessions, we'll be focusing in more detail on our plans. Part of this is that all components of the accountability system, whether they be programmatic, physical, data, performance, or customer service, will be aligned in a manner that best supports states in improving results and functional outcomes for infants, toddlers, children, and youth with disabilities and their families. To support this new accountability system, the Monitoring and State Improvement Planning Division has restructured its program. Part of the reason we did this is that we realized that conducting functions in cycles, the SPP APR, grant applications, monitoring, is not sufficient to support the amount of work that must be done. We understand that to accomplish the work with the intensity and depth that we think is necessary, these activities must be conducted year-round and cannot be episodic. We also know that our staff, in order to develop the depth of knowledge needed to truly assist states, we need to be able to specialize. Under our previous organizational plan, every state had a state contact, and the state contact was expected to do all the work with regard to their assigned states. That means they would do the SPP APR review, they would provide technical assistance and support, they would review the grant application and develop the grant award letter, they would conduct the monitoring and write up the results of the monitoring. And these activities occurred episodically throughout the year or sometimes in a multi-year cycle, so that the state contact was unable to focus sufficiently on any one level. Under our new structure, which I'll be talking about just briefly here, we are assigning staff and aligning them across 5 functional areas. These folks will be assigned to implementation teams. Performance implementation encompasses the results indicators in the SPP APR, emphasizing the state systemic improvement plan. The physical implementation team will address physical requirements under IDEA, the Office of Management and Budget Uniform Guidance, and EDGAR. The program implementation team will focus on IDEA implementation, including compliance and statutory requirements. They will be principally responsible for the annual application process. The data implementation team will examine data quality, including 618 data and data that are submitted through the State Performance Plan Annual Performance Report. This data team will also principally be involved with reviewing each state's SPP APR submission, with the exception of the MSIP, which will be reviewed by the Performance Accountability Team. And last but not least, we continue to have a customer service team, which is the face of OSEP. When a parent calls or someone from the field calls or writes in for information, it will be the customer service staff who will respond to those inquiries. In addition, each staff member on an implementation team will serve on a state team for states to which they're assigned. Every state team, such as the state we're showing here in our slide, will have a member from each of the 5 implementation teams participating, as well as a state lead. State leads do not have the same responsibilities that state contacts had. They are more the liaisons in the primary contact with the state, but they will no longer be required to do all the work for their assigned states. That work will be done by the implementation team members of the state team. So we'll be discussing this more in further parts of this session. I wanted to run through a few of our major accomplishments in the development of results-driven accountability. First of all, we have revised our state performance plan and annual performance reports. We listened to states. We tried to reduce burden. We tried to reduce duplicative submission of data. We developed a web-based submission system called Grads 360. We're entering our 2nd year of submitting data through that, and it has been facilitated the process both for states and OSEP, submitting data and reviewing that data and responding to states. In addition to eliminating indicators that weren't specifically required by the statute, we added a significant indicator, the State Systemic Improvement Plan, which states will use to guide their efforts over a 6-year period. That has become a major focus of our work and of the work of many of our technical assistance centers. Another significant development in RDA is that determinations, which previously have been based entirely on compliance, are now based on compliance and results. In 2014, for Part B, we began this process, factoring in assessment results as part of the determination process. In 2015, we also began using results areas for Part C infants and toddler program determinations. We plan to continue doing this in the coming year. To support states in the development of their Phase 2 SSIPs, OSEP conducted 9 on-site visits in the fall, working with those states. And at that time, we also rolled out a dispute resolution self-assessment for state comments and input, and also shared some of our ideas for using a risk-based organizational assessment. Because of the success of those 9 visits, we were able to offer additional opportunities beginning in December and continuing through January and February of this month. We have or will be visiting an additional 12 states to continue providing that support in collaboration with our OSEP-funded TA providers. Another important development in RDA is the creation of an organizational assessment process, which we will be discussing in more detail. But it is essentially a risk-based process for OSEP to make decisions about the level and type of monitoring and support it will provide to states. It will allow us to target and differentiate our efforts rather than use a one-size-fits-all approach as we had in the past. We sent out a dispute resolution self-assessment in December. These are voluntary, but we believe that they will be very helpful for states to use in assessing the strengths of their own system as well as areas where they need improvement. 2 of our staff attended the Cadre Symposium this fall and were able to walk through that self-assessment and provide technical assistance to a number of states that attended the symposium. In addition to the dispute resolution self-assessment, we have also developed a correctional education self-assessment for states to begin using. We intend for this to be our special focus area for the 2016-2017 school year. I hope that this overview gives you an idea of where we've been and where we're going. Follow-up sessions will delve into the differentiated monitoring and support system in more detail. Thank you.